president of Capital Crimes, and today we have a true bicoastal event. We are so pleased and honored to have Clay Stafford as our guest today from Boston via Nashville, and he'll be introduced in a few minutes by our own board member, Paula Gale Benson from Columbia, South Carolina. I met Clay almost 10 years ago at my first Killer Nashville. It is such a wonderful conference, and I try to attend every year. Now it's almost like a reunion. I've met so many friends and colleagues like Baron Bircher, Karen Dion, Alexandra Ivy, John D. Dacus, Matt Minson, Bruce Coffin, and so many others. If you haven't attended, I urge you to go. Nashville and Franklin are beautiful, and the conferences are always the best. But before we begin, let me detail some upcoming events. Tomorrow, Capital Crimes, along with many of our authors, will have a table at the second Sacramento Book Festival at the Scottish Rite Masonic Center in Sacramento. Last year was a huge success. I heard numbers like 5,000. I don't know if that's true, but it was big. And hope we can make it bigger this year. On Tuesday, May 12th, our Meet the Author guest is Katrina McPherson discussing her latest book, The Scots Egg, which won the Lefty for Best Humorous Novel at Left Coast Crime in February. On May 16th, Saturday, our members meeting guest speaker is Michael Bracken, who will discuss the business of writing short stories. And on May 17th, Mac Daly will be hosting a Crime Time get-together at Old Haunts Bookshop in Granite Bay. I ask you to check our newsletter, the Rap Sheet, and our website for all our upcoming events. And let me ask that you please mute your audio and turn off your video during the presentation. If you missed something, we are recording Clay's presentation. It'll be on our YouTube channel in about a week. And if you have questions during Clay's talk, put them in chat and Chris will compile them for our Q&A at the end. And for those new to Capital Crimes, Paula Gale Benson has been a board member for almost 5 years. She's been instrumental in bridging the coasts. Last year, she moderated our Crime-a-thon East versus West competition with authors from the Palmetto chapter in South Carolina and Capital Crimes. And it's Paula's influence that lured Clay to our meeting today. Paula is a legislative attorney and former law librarian. Her 30-plus short stories have appeared online and in electronic and print anthologies. In Killer Nashville Noir, Cold-Blooded, she co-authored A Matter of Honor with New York Times best-selling thriller writer Robert Dugoni. In addition to short stories, she writes and directs one-act plays and musicals for her church's drama ministry and regularly blogs with others about writing mysteries and romances at the Stiletto Gang and Writers Who Kill. Her article on how to promote short stories in Promophobia, Taking the Mystery Out of Planning or Promoting Crime Fiction, a Sisters in Crime publication that won Agatha Award for Best Nonfiction. She is honored to have received the Southeastern chapter of Mystery Writers of America's Magnolia Award and to serve on the board of Capital Crimes. With that, Paula, let me turn the spotlight over to you and Clay, and I'm looking forward to your talk.
Thank you so much, Rick. Thank you. Well, I have the great privilege and honor today to introduce a gentleman who I respect, and I am so delighted to have met through Killer Nashville and feel like that he is one of the greatest cheerleaders and helpers of writers that I know.
Oh,
the Atlanta Journal calls him a Renaissance man. He's been honored by BoucherCon 2024 in Nashville. If you look at his online credits, you're going to see that he's played Snoopy in You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown. He's played the King in The King and I. And he also had a role in a soap that is one of my favorites, Days of Our Lives, where you'll see him standing behind McDonald Carey and Francis Reed, the venerable Dr. Tom and Alice Horton of that series. He's been a playwright, a musician, a poet, and a short story writer. He's worked in television production on Magnum PI, Knight Rider, Miami Vice, and many others. He has written retellings of classic novels, including Huckleberry Finn and White Fang. And of course, we all know him and love him for Killer Nashville. To quote his online biography, he approaches storytelling not merely as art, but as architecture, a deliberate craft with lasting impact. His career reflects not only creative ability, but also an understanding of how stories move from concept to audience. Clay, we are so glad to have you here with us today. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Paula, and thank you for being interviewing me. You know me, and you still want to interview me, which makes
It is a privilege. It is a privilege. When did you first know that you wanted writing to be part of your life?
I don't think I ever set out to say that I am, like with this certainty, I am going to be a writer. I think that I have bumbled my way through life and I have found myself around the commonality of my love of stories. So there's a difference. I didn't set out to be a writer, I set out as a lover of stories. So it never, and an admirer of authors. The creativity and how they just put it all together, even from a child, amazed me. And so it didn't arrive as some sort of certainty that, I am going to grow up to be a writer because I went through all of the usual things. I mean, I was born in an Appalachian area, and so the traditional route was to be kind of, like a construction worker or something. So I trained as a brick mason, and then, which I don't know if you know, Paula, and then I later, set my ambitions. Maybe I could be a veterinarian, maybe I could be a lawyer, and I got all of those opportunities, but they didn't make me happy. So I kept going back to story because story and the construction of story was always the most important to me. So I almost say I'm a byproduct because I'm such an admirer of what writers do that I became a writer as a byproduct of being a fan and someone in awe, an academic awe at first. I think most writers don't begin with this confidence of saying, I'm a writer. So I think they begin similar to what I did. And I mean, your journey may be different, but they begin with a fascination of why did that move me so much? Why did that make me cry? Why did I get so involved? Why did I get where I could not? I mean, it's like an addiction. It's a heroin addiction. I'm stuck to this book. I can't get away from it. So um, I think that we all started paying attention to maybe before we even said we were a writer, what kept pulling us back. And I think that that is our signal that we have found ourselves in the spot that we need to be in. Um, I think writing, I started out writing and not knowing to call myself a writer. When as early as 10, I started a newspaper for the school that Molly Miles, the librarian and music teacher, had happily subsidized until we were selling so many issues. And this was in the mimeograph days for you old people out there. You would type on a piece of paper that had mimeograph paper underneath, and then they would put it on this big wheel and roll off. And so we started with a couple of dozen issues, and then we were printing hundreds of issues for people in different grades, and I was in the fourth grade at the time. And so it kind of made me feel validated that I had an interest in that. And then I started performing professionally at the same time when I was 10. And performing actually served as my way out, which I think we'll discuss in later on as we talk, Paula. But it was all about stories. It was never about performing. It was never about writing. It was never about writing a short stories, which I did all the time. I was a fanatic of Dr. Seuss and wrote these derivative things of Dr. Seuss And so I was constantly writing, and I've looked back and I've kept a journal since I was 8 years old, which I think that's probably unusual. And it's just kind of been something that I've been paying attention to. And the journal, interestingly enough, is not, and it still continues the same way. It's not what did I do today? It's what did I learn today? And I look at craft and I read stories and I got inspired. And as I write through, I wrote the page number and what it was going to be. So in essence, writing becomes basically a part of your life, and it's kind of this, I think, nefarious little first. There's like this little drip inside. I just went through the tunnel between Rhode Island and Boston, and I knew that first of all is terrifying every time I see a water drop. But I was thinking that, it's kind of like a water drop that we keep returning to it in spite of doubt or anything that we have. So. I think when we talk about, saying I am a writer, um, I think that's a little nebulous sometimes for some of us. We may even be writing, but we still don't consider ourselves a writer. So I don't think but I do want to emphasize with those who are listening that you don't need permission to begin. You actually just need persistence to continue. And eventually, at some point, you're going to wake up in the morning and go, wait a minute, I'm getting checks, I'm selling books. I must be a writer. So I think it comes to that point. I think that's how I first realized I was a writer.
When you had to, and Clay, we may have, it looks like you may have frozen here. So I'm not sure if you may still be talking with us, but when you had to tell other people what it is that you were planning to be, how did you describe to others your writing? And was that maybe part of why that you decided to start a company?
Yeah, well, I think early identity, it matters, but I think it evolves as well as we try to find ourselves. At first, many writers, I think, hesitate to claim that word writer, but you don't become a writer when others say so. And I think that's vital. And over the years, that's become something that's been very important to me. That's one of those cocktail conversations that you go, no, wait a minute. I mean, it's like, more important to me to talk about this than it is to talk about politics. You don't become a writer when others say you are. You become a writer when you start doing the work, consistently. So I think titles and monikers are less than habits. Um, I think people should call themselves a writer at the moment that you decide, do you want to commit to regularly writing? Now, let me ask you this, just as a technical thing. Are you hearing me okay? Because I'm getting a little
Yes, it seems like it was a momentary, it's come back now. We're
It's come
good
back.
now.
Okay, because I got
It just
a lag
froze for
from
a
you.
moment. Yes.
Okay, I was going to try to do something fancy and try to find another way to, stay online with you. But if we're working okay, that's great.
Now is good. Now is good.
Okay, so I think I kind of lost you a little bit, but I think we were talking about are we talking about forming my company then?
Yes,
Yeah.
I was so intrigued that you formed your company at the age of 16.
Yeah,
How did you know to do that? And it's a company that you still operate as
yeah,
American Blackguard
I
now.
do. It's well, counselor, I don't know where I got my my legal information, but somewhere along the way, somebody says you're going to have to start paying taxes, and I was doing. I had an 8 millimeter camera. We didn't have video at the time. I had an 8 millimeter camera, and I was writing uh, plays at the time. This was at 16. I was writing plays at the time that were getting produced. I was doing commercials for various companies, and I was doing audio commercials and audio programs at the same time. And someone said, the money is coming in. Well, nobody really discussed the subject of, technically like a Schedule C, that you go on your income tax, and they said, you're going to have to start paying some money on this. And this was really fortunate for the son of a brick mason, right? So I was getting to do something I loved, and then people say, well, why didn't you pursue veterinary medicine, or why didn't you pursue the attorney route? I said, well, because suddenly, people start paying you money doing things you love, and why would you want to do anything else, So that's what it comes down to. So I initially formed the company in order to pay taxes for no other reason than that. And then also just to become legitimate, because when you filed as a company, you suddenly became listed in directories and things. And at that point, that's more clients that you can bring on. So I was really hungry, and I think that's something that I think is very important to emphasize throughout this discussion, but also throughout the lives of everybody who's listening, that you've got to be really, really hungry for what you want to achieve. And I've told this story before. I was having a really bad day, and Harrison Ford, of all people, I admit several of you have heard me tell this story, but Harrison Ford told me that he said, and this was Harrison Ford, um, American Graffiti, Harrison Ford about to do Star Wars, not Harrison Ford as Harrison Ford now. But he said, and he always called me kid. And he said, just stick with it, kid, because people are eventually going to give up. They're going to die. They're going to go out of style, and you're going to be the last one standing. And so I just thought, okay, well, that's great for me. I'm just going to be able to just, if I just hang in there, I can do that. So sometimes I think entrepreneurship, which is what we're talking about here, if I understand correctly, um, begins a lot more confidence. The bottom line is, and I would love to, send this one home to everybody. I had no clue what I was doing. And I wake up every morning pretty much after all of these decades past with no clue what I am doing. And so I think if you wake up and go, I have absolutely no clue, well, good for you. You showed up, and that's all that counts. So I really did not wait for somebody to validate. And I encourage all of you not to wait for somebody to validate, because that trait in my life changed my life. I created a structure that fit my ambition. And I think it's very important to what is your central goal? And for me, I was just fascinated with stories. I mean, that's all it came down to. Didn't matter if it was my story. It didn't matter if it was a movie. It didn't matter if it was a TV show. It didn't matter if it was a book, a short story, a poem, an essay, anything that could move me. I just tore it apart. And I still do that. Whenever I read, I have a journal with me. I'm not talking about my life, what I want. It's what did I learn? What is the author doing great here? Okay, where's the author missing me on this? And I use that all the time. And I go back in my bored moments, obviously I have no life, but I go back in my bored moments and I look through those journals, the recent journals, to see, and just hearing it, seeing it, observing it, writing it down, then coming back and reading it later kind of reinforces, so that in my own writing, my own consulting, my own, you know, all the activities that I do, my development of projects, I maintain those elements. So I don't think anybody should wait to be chosen. Just go ahead and call. If you need to call yourself a writer, I was so stupid, I didn't know to call myself a writer. I just had an interest in something. So, but you call yourself a writer and start right there. I think many writers wait for opportunity instead of building the containers for that. And I built a container. At 16, I started that Clay Stafford company. So I built a container. So I think that you should build a container, and that includes, now it's translated into the buzzword of a platform. So, I build a container. Now people build platforms. right? So you build that with the idea of where you're going to go and meeting people who are like you, not to become massive, like, I've got gazillions of followers, that's not the objective. The objective is to find I got a great, 3,000 followers who were really interested in what I'm doing. And that's much more gold than, the million of other kinds there. So you don't need permission to start, you don't need to have your initiative. But I will say, that having your own company will make you money because it will save you money, right, counselor, in terms of deductions that are taking place. So if you are not considered a corporation, even filing a Schedule C is better than nothing at all, right? So I advise you to do that because you'll keep more money in your pocket than you will be giving it out to someone else.
I want to build on one thing that you were mentioning here, because I did not know this about you until I began doing research for our talk. But I saw that you were involved in doing retellings of classic novels, and
Yeah.
that those are still available, but that you wove that into your work as a playwright as well. Tell us a little bit about, and I imagine that must have been a great educator for structure of
It
storytelling.
it absolutely was. I did translations for Wind in the Willows, White Fang, and Huckleberry Finn, and I brought them up to contemporary. There are things about each one of those that in our age and time have people look at one part aspect of those stories and miss the genuine nut of what the story is itself. And those books transformed my life. And so I had and is it okay if I go off on a tangent right here
Please,
to,
please.
because I think it's helpful to
Absolutely.
your, I thought these books really need to be retold in a contemporary way so that a modern audience can have it, and like, Mark Twain's name is still big, but then it's like a retelling of Clay Stafford down on the smaller part, which is perfectly fine with me because once I looked, I want you to, this is important for me, for you, for me, for you. It, you don't just view yourself as a writer, you view yourself as a marketer, you view yourself as a platform builder, you build that structure. And I can't say that enough because that's going to separate you from all the other writers that are out there. What I did was have an idea for this, and I immediately looked at how I could sell books. Now, I think this is really important because I think all of you will probably really want to sell books. So this is what I did. I looked and I thought, okay, who sells books? We got Walmart, we've got Sam's Club, we've got Costco, we've got Kmart, we've got Target, and all of those. So who can get me? And see, this is where I think you should be thinking. Who can get me into there? Because it's one thing to sell at a bookstore. It's fabulous to sell at a bookstore. And I've sold all of these books that I've ever done in bookstores. But my mentality was distribution. And so I thought, who could do that? And with a little bit of research, I came up with a company that had end caps on all of these places. And so I contacted them and said, I've got this idea for retelling these things. And they ended up doing a whole series of classics, but we were on the end caps. And I think people, talk, you think you talk to somebody and they say, oh, I sold X amount of number of books, or you can be on the New York Times bestseller list by selling 10,000 books in a week, right? So what I did through calculated effort, and that's the point that I want you to make, because I want you to calculate this, not just be a writer. I want you to be an entrepreneur in this. You look at it and you go, okay, let's go a route that really moves volume, and you want spontaneous purchase. Even if you're writing a thriller, mystery, I mean, following this, I would go through airports and see my books. I mean, you know what, how heady that kind of is to walk through an airport and see all these books there, and then see your books sitting there in the airport kiosk, for a thing. But it all started with how I wanted to position myself, which is what I want to encourage you. Position yourself, intentionally position yourself, potentially look for the people that are and the organizations that can get you from point A to point B, whatever that happens to be. And I thought, if I'm going to be writing, I just assume I want to be read, and I want to be read by as many people. I was at, I don't know if you saw in my bio, I was a composer and arrangement major in college. Did you see that, Paula? And so I used to get ragged all the time because they were like, oh, he's so commercial. All he wants to do is, have something out there. Well, why not make the money now? That's what I think about. Why not be celebrated now, not after I'm dead and gone? And the people I was with were concentrated on that legacy thing. I was concentrating on trying to pay for college, to go to school. And so I ended up writing jingles and all kinds of stuff, for music that would pay the bills. And so when I started writing, I'm like, I got to pay the bills with all this stuff. So I strategically, not sent out to select agents with a prayer that something is going to be. I packaged this is how we can sell this. And that's what I want to impart to you. You practice, this is how I can sell this. So when somebody looks at that, they're going like, well, wow, this guy seems to know what he's doing talking about sales, because he's not talking about art. He's not talking about craft. He's talking about, I want to make you some money, which is exactly what what I think every writer needs to do for their publisher, is make them money. Because the more, it delights me. People say you're crazy, but it delights me to pay my agent. But it delights me to pay the publisher. It delights me to pay the IRS. Why? Because it means that money is coming in. So if you're not paying, then the money is not coming in. So, it's a no-brainer. Feel free to make your publisher money. So this publisher picked it up, put it on the end cap. I was selling out pallets of 20,000 books in boxes to the Costco in Los Angeles, the Costco in Boston, the Costco in Nashville, and then Target came out and put out a faux leather edition, all of them with color illustrations on every single page. And so just conceptualizing that and thinking outside the box, I think, is how you sell products. And I also want to give a plug for my wife. A lot of people out there know Jacqueline. I was like, when I first came up with that idea, I'm like, children's retellings of books. Mark Twain did an excellent job by himself without my help. And Jacqueline's like, you really ought to do that. So I also want to encourage, those people that are around you that you really trusted and are close to, and they go, you really ought to do that, then pay attention to it, because I think every good decision I've ever made was from Jacqueline, and every bad one was from me. So anyway.
When you had people telling you really ought to do that, and I saw one of the questions that we got in the chat line was, how did you know what you could legally retell? Did you, in working with other people, once that they were enthusiastic about the product, were you getting help from other sources to figure out some of the legal details, some of the other details that you had to figure out?
No, and I'm a little different here, having formed American Blackguard as a corporation, having that, I do have a team of adequate counsel, such as, like, it's important to have adequate counsel. And they do all of those searches and everything for you to determine what is public domain. And that's what those stories are. They were public domain. And so that was the brainer, but I owe the credit to my legal counsel to pull that off. And I think it's really important, if I may digress, that it's really important that you have your team. And I think it's incredibly important that you view yourself as the team leader, because everything is filtering down from you. For example, I don't think writers, who are timidly send a manuscript over to an agent or a publisher, you timidly send that in, you've lost all concept of how the food chain works. Because without what you provide, the publicist doesn't have a job, the editor doesn't have a job, the publisher doesn't have anything to release, the distributors don't have anything to sell, the retail markets don't there. And I think sometimes writers put themselves at the bottom of the food chain and think of themselves, in that, I don't want to say a victim mentality, but, some sort of victim mentality. But you're the instigator. You are the brand. You are McDonald's. You're the one that's selling this product. And so I think there's a reframing that most writers I meet, I really want to just, hold them by the shoulders and look them in the eye and say, listen, you are the originator. I mean, all you have to do is look when Jim Henson died. They sold the business to Disney. Stock was huge, right? Jim Henson of the Muppets died. Stock plummeted. Why? Because the brain was gone. It was so important that entrepreneur writer, that entrepreneur creator, that entrepreneur auteur, if you want to pull from the film industry, maintains that perspective, because you are providing all of these people with their livelihood. Now, first of all, that's pretty heady. Second of all, it's unorthodox, but it's a fact. And then third of all, it puts a lot of responsibility on you, because I got to make sure that all of these people who believed in me, who believe in you, are paid for their time and effort in that. So it's important to put together your team. It's incredibly important as an entrepreneur to put together your team. What do you need? You need, obviously, an accountant. You got to have a great accountant who knows the business, not just somebody who's, a particular, I don't mention brand names, but a particular, company that just does taxes. You don't need that. You need somebody who understands creative individuals and creative deductions and income. You need an attorney. You need an attorney on standby. I'm not saying retainer, but you got to have an attorney on standby, because things come up. And when somebody decides to sue you for something, which they will, every time you have something successful, somebody's going to want to sue you. So if you have that, that's not the time to go try to find an attorney. You need to be able, and this year we're having actually an attorney at Killer Nashville coming in to talk, and I think she's absolutely incredible. I love her business model, how she practices and everything, but you need to have an attorney. So you need an accountant, you need an attorney, and you need, if you can afford it, you also need a publicist to be able to help you in what you're doing. But the first two things, major. You got to have an accountant and you've got to have an attorney, because those are the people that are going to protect you and have an humble perspective. I feel like I have these people that I hire and that I work for them, because when they say, Clay, I really don't think you should spend money on this particular thing, and it's something that I'm absolutely passionate about, it would be silly for me. I think it would be arrogant for me. I think it would be egotistical of me to say, no, my passion is that I can see it. I can see it. Um, I'll tell you a story. I was working in accounting for a production called Jurassic Park. And a memo came across my desk from the accounting department that I was to pass on to the guy who happened to be developing and directing Jurassic Park. And it's like that thing from the Wiz musical, I wake up in the morning, don't bring me no bad news. You kind of like tremble with the idea of bringing somebody some bad news. But we had a budget for Jurassic Park, and this particular page was pulled, and the accountant just wrote in blue ink, Tyrannosaurus Rexes don't do this. And basically that means Universal is not going to pay for this. So I had to be the messenger and then prayed to God, please don't kill the messenger, because I love working here at Universal. So you take that in. So you would be not using all of your brain cells if you decided to move forward when your advisory team, and that's what they're there for, when your advisory team is telling you, you need to use some caution here, you need to step back and rethink. And so I constantly, every member of my team, and I've got several members of my team, they all work remote. I've got them in, Los Angeles, London, all over, but they all give me incredible advice. And it doesn't matter if, everybody is equal in my opinion, but if you looked at what it is, the job title, somebody is lower on the totem pole than somebody else, um, I listen to the person that's lower on the totem pole just as much as I listen to anybody because they bring a perspective. I love the quote from, Robert Burns, oh, the gift, the give he give us to see ourselves as others see us. And sometimes, we have the most ambitious plans, and then someone else can see us a little bit more realistically and say, Clay, love you, but I don't know that this is the best choice to make. And again, I have to defer and say the best things that have kept me out of trouble have been listening to good counsel. And so you need to surround yourself with those people. Now, you be cautionary about payment methods because the payment methods on some, they'll fleece you. But like I said, this lady that's coming to Killer Nashville this year, I love her business model. It's affordable to writers, and it's incredibly helpful. And that's the kind of environment that I try to encourage for writers, something where that you have a collaborative with your team rather than hiring a person to do that. You want people around you, surrounded in your inner circle that believe in what you're doing. And
how do you find those people? How do you, I know you have so many people around you that I see who believe in your vision, people that you have mentored. How do you find the right connections, and how do you maintain them?
and I think that I'm going to be flip with you, Paula, but I think it comes down to the very simple answer. You just ask somebody that might know, and so contact at claystafford.com could be a great resource for you if you ever wanted to use it. Because when I get emails in from people saying, "Hey, can you recommend somebody?" I'm happy to recommend somebody. Can you recommend an editor? Can you recommend an accountant? Can you recommend an attorney? All of those things that come about, I'm happy to recommend, give you 3 or 4 to check into, because that's part of When I started out, as you can imagine, and Paula, you know, I talk about my grandmother and them not having running water, people not having electricity that were relatives of mine, getting water for my grandmother, you know, with cranking it down and then getting it back up and squirting it into a bucket to take in the house for her to cook with, to wash dishes with, to whatever she needed to do with. And, you know, the people with no electricity and stuff. I had really, there was nobody that I could ask. And it was by consciously thinking and being naive. I'm not going to name names, but writing to the most famous author I know, this is my situation and I don't know what to do. And then having a letter back, because at the time there wasn't, you know, email stuff, but a letter back from said author, which I've kept in a folder because they just mean so much to me, of Clay, thank you for your letter. You know, and you're a crazy, you know, 16-year-old kid. But if you really want to do this, this is what you need to do. And so I think the most important, how do you find it is your question. You look at people who are doing what you want to be doing, and then you contact them. And I think writers of all the professions I think that I have ever met are the most compassionate, the most empathetic, the most understanding of all people. And that's why I love this profession so much. That's why you know, I was a writer, and so then I went to Hollywood, and then I came back out of Hollywood, and I went straight back to literature because writers in literature are a gentlewoman and gentleman's business still. And it appeals to, you know, I've been referred to as a Renaissance man. It appeals to the Renaissance man of me, to that older time when we were, you know, and my counsel still has trouble. My deals are handshake, and you give me your word, and I give you my word. And Paula, as you well know, that sends the counsel spinning on their ears right there, right? So they come along after the fact. They get the deal memo. They make the contract. They, you know, it works that way. But I think that it's you really just kind of like develop those people around you, and you know, contact me. I'm approachable, and all the writers that I have ever, I mean, I cannot, there's exceptions. I know there's exceptions, but I remember being a young cub and, you know, writing to Sue Grafton, who sent me a personal note back, or write to Dean Koontz, Stephen King. I mean, it's, the list is long of people that I said, hey, and be accurate. I think a lot of times people like, do you use wonderful resumes? You know, I did this, I did this. They don't care. What they care about is that I really want to do what you're doing, and I have no clue, and I have no opportunity. Can you just give me a nugget of a direction? I don't want anything from you. Don't want anything from you. Just give me a direction of a nugget of which way to go. And it's been amazing to my life how blessed I've been, because these people, not only for me, have not just said, okay, you need to apply to this, or you need to do this, or whatever. They're like, hey, send me a manuscript. Hey, I'm working on this project. If you want to just kind of tag along, you know, when I was doing filmmaking and stuff, hey, you can do this if you'll, I tell you what, I need somebody to bring me coffee. This is true. Bring me coffee. And that was my foray into filmmaking. Was a director, a very good director, said, I can't afford to pay you. And I said, well, I'm not asking for money. I'm asking your advice because I don't know what to do. I'm a stupid little Appalachian kid. I've never been around writers. I don't know what to do. And they're like, well, I do need somebody to bring me coffee, but it's not a paying gig. You got it. I can bring you coffee. And that's how I learned to direct on film, by doing that. So I think
You know,
that,
that's what I love about your being at Killer Nashville, because you were so present among everybody at Killer Nashville and so approachable at Killer Nashville that people can come up to you and say, Clay, what do you think about? What would you suggest to me? And I think that's why Killer Nashville is the great success that it is. And I want you, oh, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but I also want you to talk a little bit about how it's expanded to the Killer Nashville newsletter and now Killer Nashville University on top of it.
yeah, and I I used to teach like at the University of Miami, and people would talk about something, they'd want to be a writer, they want to be something. And I always asked them the question because it was important to me. I said, do you want to sleep in your car? Because how bad do you want it? Because there's tons. You look at the number of self-published, traditional published, independent published books that are done. How many writers are out? Are you willing to sleep in your car? I mean, is it that important to you? And for me, it was that important. And so at Killer Nashville, I have I have never forgotten how scared it is to sleep in maybe an alleyway or to sleep in a drugstore parking lot because you had no place to go. You had a manual typewriter. When I went to Los Angeles, a manual typewriter in the back of your car and a ream of paper. And that was the most important thing to you in your life. Not where you're going to get your next meal, not where you're going to stay, but the fact that you had something, just something, whether it's an essay, a poem, a short story, a novel, a nonfiction book, what you had something that was so important that you had to say, and then the proper way to say it, the craft that goes with it, and that's why I say it goes back to me constantly tearing writing apart. Good writing and bad writing. The good writing, this is what's working. Wow, that's incredible. This is bad writing. I don't feel anything for the protagonist right now. And then note to self, bring in some things a little bit earlier. And so with Killer Nashville, when we first started it when I first started back in 2006, when I came home and told Jacqueline, I said, I'm going to have a conference. Um, I I felt that writers like me who did not have the affluence, did not have any influence, uh, could actually, as my grandfather would say, do good in life, if they were just given a little bit of direction, not somebody doing something for somebody, but giving them a little bit of direction of, okay, you're lost in the you're lost in the woods, man. Here's the trail I want you to go for. And most of the time, people that were mentors like that, if you view them and said, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, then they were always happy when you came back and said, I went through the little trail in the woods and I got to Robert Frost's little road to the left and road to the right, and I don't know which one to turn to. And and they're always very happy to do that. I do that all the time with people. I answer emails all the time still with people. And I tried to create an environment with Killer Nashville where everybody was approachable, where all of the forensic people, the writing people, the agents, the editors, the publishers, the publicists, everybody who's involved in I'll tell you this, even the best-selling authors, but also the debut authors and the pre-authors, because those people have so many stories to tell, and they have so many assets to share. If you just take away, okay, this person's a New York Times, this person is a debut, ask the debut because they've got so much to offer. And so what I wanted to do was create an environment where um, there was a community where people could come together. And right at the time that I was going to do that, the internet just blew up. It's hard to imagine that. I look at my son, and he was born the year the iPhone came out. That's crazy. We always think we always had the iPhone, right? We always had cell phones, right? No, we didn't. I got a kid in college right now, and the iPhone is his exact age. And so um, I think that what we need, what we want to do is to be able to tap into all of those people who come to Killer Nashville with a sense of humility on both sides. Humility from me asking, humility from someone else when they come to ask, humility from the giver back. And I've tried to establish that with Killer Nashville because that's what I needed. And I thought if I could eliminate the learning curve, because believe me, it was a learning curve coming from where I came to where I am now. It's a learning curve. It's a constantly building curve. Um, if you can shorten that for someone, isn't that something that you want to do? And that was when I came home and told Jacqueline, that was exactly what I wanted to. I wanted to shorten that learning curve for people so that they could have another decade than maybe I didn't have because I was so busy learning in that decade, you know? And they can skip that decade if they just listen to what's going on and if they will just be humble enough and not arrogant enough to say, I need your help to somebody who is there, or the forensic people who are in there, help me. Why spend 3 months learning how a body decomposes when you come to Killer Nashville and you've got Bill Bass of the Body Farm to tell you immediately, and it saves you 3 months' time. You know, that's the kind of environment that I wanted to create. And I wanted to do something that was international because I grew up, my two brothers went to the Vietnam War, and it was very important to me that we bring the world together, not blow part of it up. Okay. And so I felt of all people, I do believe that the pen is mightier than the sword. And the words of authors have changed more lives, than more conflicts or disagreements or even wars or anything else that writers of integrity, writers who can see the writers who live in the gray. I love writers who live in the gray. I think on my gravestone I may call, it buried here is Clay the Gray, because there is so much gray area that's between, an extreme here and extreme here. There's so much in there. And that's where all the nuggets of storytelling and the nuggets of character, because we're not all one or the other of something. We're not all good. We're not all bad. We're all people. And getting the nuances of those stories down on page is an amazing thing to do. It's an incredible attempt to make, and it's even surprising when you actually pull the thing off. But writers have that so much of that fluent influence, and I wanted people to come to an environment where we could encourage a community in a time when the internet is suddenly now expanding worldwide, and we have a chance to touch people. And I have had emails from people who are all over the world. There was one time on my social media thing. Somebody said, you're more popular in Italy, Germany, and Spain and France than you are here in the US. And I was like, that's pretty cool, because that's exactly what I wanted to do. And then every year for like all of the Claymore and Silver Falchion Awards, we have people from all over the country, not just countries that you think of, but countries that I wonder how in the world they are submitting a manuscript from. And I'm not going to mention names of countries, but it makes me wonder how in the world are they sending this in? And there's a moral responsibility, an ethical responsibility that comes in when you get some of these stories from some of the places that they come from, and they tell stories of heroics and stories of freedom in a place where they are not free at all. And I think, what kind of risks do these writers take? But that's what writers do. That's what writers are. That's what we all should strive to be, is to be able to have the courage to do that. So in creating Killer Nashville, I tried to create a place where people could come into that environment and know that what you've got to say is important, and
And a
what your
great gift,
story, pardon
a
me?
great gift that you gave to me personally was the opportunity to work with Robert Dugoni on a short story that was published in Killer Nashville Noir Cold Blooded.
Yeah.
And I know you have helped other authors with publications. Do you foresee that Killer Nashville will continue a publishing legacy? Are you thinking in that area at all?
Yes, you reach a certain point, Paula, that you start thinking legacy, right? And transfer of how things go. And yes, putting all of that in place, because I hate the idea of building that environment. And I think I've got a team now that really understands the core, the moral core. I mean, I don't want to reduce commercialism to morals, but to the moral core of what I think is important, because Jacqueline can tell you, I never think about money. I think about difference. What kind of difference can we make? And that's where it comes down to, what kind of difference can we make? And there's a transition team, yes, in place. Should I exit tomorrow? Will Killer Nashville continue? Yes. And then you reference Killer Nashville University. We've got 10,000, can you believe that? 10,000 audio files from the best storytellers in our time.
Amazing.
And we're adding 10 new stories. Now you figure 10,000, okay? You do the math. I'm not a math person, but 10,000 audio hours, and we're adding 10 new titles per week. And in order to do that, to eventually build this whole ecosystem that's got all of this stuff, that anybody around the world with internet service is able to do that. And you know what? If you don't have any money, like some little kid from Appalachia who has no money at all and has to sleep in their car, you will always find every single week, not the cull, but the absolute best release, absolutely free. So www.killernashvilleuniversity.com. You go there once a week. You can see the premiere audio for free. You do not have to pay. Everything is free, because I found a long time ago, and I know from my personal experience, that sometimes the people who need things the most are not the ones who can afford it. And so those are the people that I want to reach, because those are the people who a lot of times have the voice and have the message and have the experience and the pains and the frustrations and the hopes and the dreams that need to be able to be voiced through words. And those are the people that I want to reach. And not all of those people have money. And so Killer Nashville University is my way to internationally reach out and say, if you've got a story to tell, here's some inspiration, here's some guidance on how to do it, here's a way to publish it, here's some forensics to help you involve, because that's our genre that we're after. But I put that out there, and I've always said, like Killer Nashville magazine, um, little bit of tidbit. June's issue of Killer Nashville magazine is now going to be a full-blown magazine that's going to be available as of June, on Amazon and all of the other places where you download, Apple and all the other places where you download magazines, full of short stories. And we found people that have never published a short story before. And guess what? Otto Penciler sends me an email, says, I want to include it in my, the best American. So we've got best American mystery stories, best American mystery stories of the U.S. or whatever. I don't remember. You can look online and see all those. But we have those accolades where we discover these people and we open doors. And you know what? Publishers look at that and they go, wow, okay, this person published a short story in Killer Nashville magazine, which is now, a paying magazine, a paying you write something, you get paid for it. More
And
than just copies. But it's
Rick has just asked a question. Can you also mention about the scholarship program for coming to Killer Nashville?
Yes, the scholarship program is open. We give a lot of scholarships away to people who are not able to afford them. Most of those come from waiving of the registration fees, because it's really difficult to look at that and then go also, because I think you need a little bit of money in the game in order to be able to, show some seriousness in what's going on. So we do give full scholarships, which includes, plane fare, hotel room, conference, food. But then we also give waiving of tuition, and then you provide the way that you get there. So it varies. And when you fill out the scholarship form, you'll be able to see, it'll ask you, what do you require? And if we've got the money and funds, set aside for this particular scholarship that includes everything that you're asking for, then, you'll be in consideration. But, if it's like, we need the registration, we're going to waive the registration, but you need full airplane support and everything else, then that one not necessarily works out. So when you fill it
Is
out,
there a means of donating to the program online? Can people donate to the program?
Absolutely. I think there's a button that people can donate to give scholarships to people, and it has been incredible over year. That's where it comes from. I give scholarships myself, but it's always helpful when an outside third party says, hey, I just want to buy a registration for somebody. And then we look through you write an essay and they look through and then decide, who's got the best essay in terms of why they need to come. And then we give that scholarship away to those particular people.
And
but I think they say once you go through the depression, you're always in the depression. You never forget the depression. And growing up the way I grew up, I will never, no matter how much counseling I get, right? No matter how many stories I tell to try to vet myself, right? You're never going to forget the fact that you are there and hopeless. I want to let that sink in. There and hopeless. You have no money, you have no contacts, you have no way of getting out. And so what I want the Killer Nashville organization to do, whether it's the university or the magazine or the conference itself, I want that to be a hope that there is a way there, because I'm telling you, and I really, that your timidity is the thing that's going to work against you more than anything, because we are in a profession that is such a giving profession. Writers are incredible. They give. You're not in competition. I'm never in competition with you, Paula. You and I see the world a different way. You and I write completely different things. You and I are interested in various subjects, and you and I come from completely different backgrounds. We are not, we are apples and oranges, literally, and there is absolutely no way to compare us. So that's where writers come from, because whether they voice it that way or not, they realize it, that you are giving to another human. You're not giving to a competitor. You're giving to another human. And that's what makes the writing profession such a beautiful place for me to be, and a place that I feel like I'm most at home.
Well, I've already seen one thank you for publishing a short story coming up in the chat.
And
Maybe
we are
Chris can
looking for,
help us.
please tell everybody out there to go look at Killer Nashville Magazine, killernashvillemagazine.com. Go look and see what we're looking for and submit. We would love to publish your poetry, your flash fiction, your craft articles, your excerpts from books that you've got
Fantastic.
coming out. We publish, and we even pay you for publishing your excerpt. And so, and short stories and essays, personal essays, narrative essays. So we truly are a literary magazine like that, and we really want to discover the voices. Otto Pensor says, that we do a great job of it. Publishers Weekly says we're influential on determining best sellers throughout the U.S. Can you imagine that this little conference we started in 2006 is by Publishers Weekly influential in determining the best sellers throughout the U.S. And it's all a blessing. And I have to say, like the Beatles, I get by with a little help from my friends, because it's not about me. It's never been about me, and it will never be about me. It's about the community. And that's the most important thing, is the
And
community.
that is
So,
very, very clear at Killer Nashville. Very clear. Chris, will you help us? I've seen some questions coming up. Will you help us with questions that have been posed for Clay?
Sure. Hi, Clay.
hey,
You have been great because you've answered a whole bunch of questions that we had earlier. So I will go through some of these and see what else we can do.
okay.
Um, let's see. This wasn't a question, but it was a great comment from Myra. She said it was a great reset for the mind that writers are the originator. And I agree with you. That I put a little star there, Myra. Um, and on that same vein, Brenda just asked, she said, I am so timid when it comes to promoting myself. How can I change this?
Small steps. Absolutely small steps. Don't try to do anything big. Don't try to do anything that you see. I think sometimes one of the worst things you can do is buy one of those marketing books, which gives you like a plethora of a gazillion things that you need to be doing. And we just don't have, they don't, all of it is correct if you had a team of 100 people to implement it. But what we've got is people who have true feelings, true intimidations, true fears, imposter syndromes, all
Yeah.
sorts of other, factors that are coming in. And you try to, in everything that you do, because we are finite beings. So in everything that you do, try to get as much possible into the shortest amount of time. And I think that could be, I'm going to increase my newsletter subscriptions. I'm going to increase my social media influence. I'm going to create a great website that entices people to have an interest in me, not buy my books. Forget that. It's never about buy my books, because let's clear something up really quick. And this applies to the question. Um, a book is never a brand. The book is not the brand. You are the brand. just like you are the originator of all of these ecosystems that come from you. You are the brand. So I see people putting, like this is my book.com, this is my other book.com. That's diffusing the brand. The brand is you. You are the brand. So it's incredibly important that you always view that you are the brand. You are the instigator. You are the entrepreneur. You are the head of the company. You are the person who is guiding and safeguarding the lives and livelihood of the people who are working with you. And so you look and say, what is the best thing I can do? Maybe it's increase my newsletter. That's one small thing. So you start increasing your newsletter. Then once that gets on a trajectory and you've worked out, it's amazing. You go, every entrepreneur will tell you this, you go, you climb the mountain this far, and then you go, wait, there's a bigger mountain over there, right? So then you climb that one a little bit, and wow, there's a bigger one, and that repeats, it continues forever. And so you start with those very small goals. Don't try to do these huge things that many of the books recommend. Pick something that's organic to you. I love talking with people. So my newsletter that I send out every month about, publishing tips and writing tips and life tips as a writer, all of those things that I put out are, again, it goes back to that labor of love. We're not talking about money. Those of you who subscribe to my newsletter, how many times have you ever seen me say, buy my book? I don't say it. But what I do say is, this is what that has worked for me. Maybe it'll work for you. And I believe that small steps are actually the most important thing you can do. And patience, be patient, because it takes years. All these overnight successes, they're not overnight successes. That somebody just finally recognized them after, 10, 20 years in the trenches. And they learn their chops, and they're available to work. So the answer to your question is pick some small things and build on that. And then when you get to that, you'll go, oh, there's a whole panorama of other things that are able to see. And then you start on something else and try to focus on one thing at a time. Don't get overwhelmed and I need to do, social media. I need to do this. I need to do some podcasts. I need to, don't do that. Pick what you want to do. Become proficient at that one thing and then expand to the next thing. And look at it when you're prioritizing, which ones of these are more organic to me. Sometimes podcasts are normal. If you're a good speaker, podcasts are an easy thing to do. You just get up and run your mouth, right? So, but newsletters are a little harder to put together. Yet newsletters are not quite as intimidating in your face. So newsletters may be the appropriate choice for somebody else. So pick that one thing, work on it, get it proficient, and then move on to the next thing that you feel comfortable in. I think that's important, that you feel comfortable. And if you feel you do not want to speak in front of anybody, don't do a podcast. Just, even though
it's not the good thing to do.
Yeah, a gazillion people tell you do a podcast. No, I'm not doing one. Sorry, no. And I'm the entrepreneur, so I'm the top cheese. I'm not doing one. I'm saying I'm not doing it. Put my foot down, And so do it that.
Great. Good answer. Catherine, I think your question was already answered, but she said she'd never experienced Killer Nashville, but are there any programs that are virtual, which I would assume is Killer Nashville University?
Yeah, Killer Nashville University is your best bet right now. And I will tell you, just to drop, that there are many things, at least two very major things coming in the future from the Killer Nashville group. I'm not going to give away what's going on because I always think
Oh, come on. A little
I
hint.
think it's best to actually, here is what we've got, and there it is, other than here is what's coming, because there's too many variables as to whether things, pull off exactly they want.
Yeah.
But two very major things are coming from Killer Nashville, probably in 2006, and both of them will be in place in 2007. And I think it's something that's going to be very exciting.
2027.
Pardon me?
2027 or
Yeah,
26.
if you want to
Yeah.
if you want to be technical, Chris.
Okay. Well, here's a question from me.
2026 and 2027.
Here's a question for me. What's your favorite part of Killer National Conference? Uh-oh.
Seeing that elevator come down, or when we were like at the Omni Hotel in Nashville, seeing that escalator and having somebody raising their manuscript above their head and screaming to me across the lobby, they want to see my manuscript.
Oh, cool.
And it continues every year to be the one thing, because I remember how hard it was to get there.
Yeah.
And I remember that moment, and I feel joy, and I feel such a privilege and an humbleness to be able to be a part of that moment when somebody's life is about to be transformed to a dream that they may have secretly carried with them for so long.
That just gave me shivers. That sounds so much fun. Barb just asked do you have any tips to rejuvenate a book that she published in 2022?
No, I'm gonna be the sour grapes in this one. Not really for that book. The best thing you can do for that book is publish a great next book.
Okay.
And then it becomes your backlist, and then it will be picked up. And we know most authors make their money from their backlist, right? It's not the front list. It's not the best-selling book where they're making their money. It's the best-selling book that draws attention to make people buy the backlist. So in order to sell that particular book and do something that it will exploit, and I'm using exploit in a very good word, in a very good way, exploit that book, write the great next book, keep moving forward, build that
forward. Great idea. Okay, we've got one technical question. I'm trying to find it again.
Oh gosh, don't throw me technical stuff. We were trying to get this thing started.
No, it's not that kind of technical.
I want to live in the ethers of the creative world. Okay.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
this is
Hit me with your best shot, Chris. Hit me with your best shot.
Okay. This is from Mark. He says, "Do you know any good books on head hopping?" He says, you're not supposed to do this, but you can do it if you do it right. Tom Clancy fans can attest. Or are there any sessions on this at Killer Nashville University?
Can you ask what head hopping is? Because I'm not familiar with that term.
Going from one character to another within a very brief framework, like the same scene, instead of staying with a single character's perspective, going from one character's perspective to another character's perspective.
Oh, like an omniscient almost.
Yeah, almost.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. We covered that in Killer Nashville. We got a session on that in Killer Nashville this year.
Cool. Okay. Let's see.
Yeah, that falls under the point of view.
Barb says I'm working on the next one.
Good for you.
But Clay, I'm 85. No problem.
No, don't even start down this road.
Yeah, keep working. Brenda says in 23, I was a Claymore finalist in thriller category. It was the biggest thrill of my life. I appreciate your conference, and I this is the second year she's a judge, and she believes in giving back. So cool,
That's incredible.
Brenda,
Well,
that's
see, that's
great.
what it's all about,
Yeah,
everybody who gets something good that happens to them, giving back.
share.
That's
Yeah.
the most important. Whether you do it through Killer Nashville or anything, give back because that's what matters in the end. When it's all over, that's what matters. It's not what you take, it's what you give.
Clay, how do you balance doing your own writing with all of your entrepreneurial efforts?
Intention, seriously, intention. I try to get up and start writing as close to 7 o'clock every morning. Sometimes it's 7:30. Sometimes when I can't get my lazy self up, it may be 8 o'clock, but I try as much as I can to be at 7 o'clock. And I start writing. And I do have a team of people that work with me, and they need things throughout the day. So I always recommend people turn off your email, turn off your phones, turn off. I don't have that luxury because I have people who are making decisions, and their job is to do something, and they come to this stopping point, and it's like, okay, what do I do here? And they need an answer. So I've always got my email up, but I spend all day writing, rewriting, editing, verbal reading. Before I turn anything in, I always do a verbal reading. I'm doing a verbal reading right now. This is news to my agent because I never tell my agent, my poor agent, anything at all. I news to my agent, I'm doing my verbal reading, and that always means that's the last pass because I like to read out loud and look at the cadence of how the sentences flow to make sure that they and you know I've made a career of writing dialogue, and so even when you write narrative, you're writing dialogue really because think about it, you're going to have an audio reader who's reading it. And if it doesn't flow, if it's chunky when it's trying to, no matter how literary it might sound chunky in terms when you try to put it into the spoken word, and I try to look at, people say, oh, are you serious? You sit and just think in iambic? And I'm like, yeah, because that's the way it's been flowing for great, 400 years, at iambic flow. So, I sit and read it out loud, but that's how I juggle. But everybody that is around me knows that my number one priority is my creative output. And I think just stating that's number one. And I have to give a shout out for everybody who works with me and my team members because they know how important it is to me. And they do everything in their power to make sure that I get to do the one thing that really satisfies me every day. And then also, I will say, I'm in a bad mood on a day that I do not get to write. So my wife is very encouraging that I write every day because it makes everything much better. I'm not.
Can you tell us a little bit about what you're working on now, what we can look forward to?
I will not. And you know that, Paula, before you even ask that question, because that's one of my things. I do not tell what is coming. And I got that from working in accounting on Hannah and Her Sisters with Woody Allen. And it was production number X 74398 by Woody Allen, or something. I'm making the numbers up. And it was like, I was like, this is the craziest thing. I can't even see the script. And they said, you won't see the script until it shows up on the agent's desk, or in his case, it's the attorney's desk because he handles everything through attorneys. And so, no, I won't answer that question at all, but I've got some really good things that are coming up. I've promised my agent some things that I think will be beneficial. Beneficial, one thing that's coming up is going to be beneficial to the conversation we're having here. And I hope it's something that will actually help writers. And again, cut down that learning curve, that trajectory that I had to go through because part of my regret is like, life ticks. So it's like if I could have only eliminated those 10 years or 15 years of my life, then I would be much farther along, but it doesn't always work out that way. And the person who is 85, let's just assume that you've got the long genes, like in my family, and somebody, we're all going to live to at least 101. I was just talking yesterday to a guy in Rhode Island, okay? Turned 75, sold his boat, and the best thing he loved was fishing. Fishing, I mean, it's a dangerous job, like a commercial fisherman. He had his boat license, fishing, lobsters, scallops, swordfish, um, and crabs. And he sold it at 75 because he assumed at 75 he should be, I mean, you need to back off at 75, right? Wrong, because he is 86 right now. Just had dinner with him last night. 86 years old and talking about buying a new boat that comes with a license. The whole license thing is just a bureaucratic craziness. But he's buying a new boat with a license because he's 86 years old, feels as good as he did at 75, has mental capacities better than I do, and he wants to start, back into lobstering because of all the different things he did. Lobstering was his favorite thing, and he's 86 years old and buying the boat. So the person who's there that's 85, don't sell your boat. Don't sell your boat. Stick with it because you got maybe have 20, 25 years left, in a fantastic career. So don't sell the boat, because I listened to this guy's story and it was just a lament that he had sold his boat and he's waiting. He's 86. He's waiting, 11 years to pass away, and he's as healthy as he was at 75. And so, don't do it. Don't sell the boat.
I
Lovely.
saw another question that said, "What is your favorite movie?"
I will not say,
Oh,
because,
okay.
and I'll tell you why. I will not say what my favorite movie is, and I will not say what my favorite book is, because I know too many authors and I know too many filmmakers. And if I say the wrong thing, somebody's going to get angry with me. But I will say that for the most part, usually the thing that I am reading right now and enjoying is my favorite, because I put my mental heart and soul into that story that somebody has written. And if I'm watching a movie, I do the same thing. My mental heart and story is in that. Um, it came as a spur of a moment, but then now it's become a classic Clay line, is that I was teaching a class and we were watching a movie, and someone said, was talking during the movie, and I turned, not thinking about it, but just turned and I said, you know what? I don't talk in your church. You don't talk in mine. Because those stories to me are sacred time, whether they're essays, poems, short stories, nonfiction, whatever it happens to be, they're sacred times to me. And so my favorite one is the one that I'm immersed in right now. And then that leaves room for me to have a next favorite one. And what a wonderful way to go through life, to have always the next one is your next favorite one, because it only gets better every time. It just gets better every time. So,
Well, will you at least tell us what we can look forward to? Can you tell us a little bit about what's planned for Killer Nashville this year?
I say this every year, Paula, and you know that I say this every year. 2026 is going to be the best Killer Nashville we have ever done. And I say that every single year. And my wife Jacqueline says, you always look and see how can you top what you've done before. And I think what does it mean? What was topping mean? It means creating networks, creating education, creating confidence, creating resilience, in the people who are there, and how do you go about, because I'm an academic as well, so how do you go about doing that with people? And so every year I'm looking at what happened before, and I'm thinking, how, Clay, you stupid person, how could you have done better in that situation? And then I try to incorporate it into this next year's thing. And I've got uh, Isabel and Maddie working with me this year on the schedule, and we're going back and forth, and we got our nominating committee for our sessions, and we are just building a stellar weekend, Thursday through Sunday, that I really think can be transformative if people come into it and say, I want to learn and I want to give. And you bring those two things in, and I think that you're going to walk away transformed from the weekend.
Well, Clay, I think you're probably right. Every year is your favorite, and every year it gets better. But right now, we're going to have to close this down. I just want to say thank you very much, Clay, for all of this, and Paula for being right there and talking to your friend. And everybody that's still online here, we did put in Clay's emails. If you want to get any more information about Killer Nashville, it is in the chat. So thank you all for coming, and I think we're done.
Yeah, please take advantage, if I can say one thing, please take advantage of all the free resources through Killer Nashville Magazine and Killer Nashville University, because it's free. Just take advantage of it.
Well, Clay, I will see you in August. It's always a pleasure. And one of my favorite times are the after hours parties.
Yeah, we know that about you, Rick.
Thank you, everybody, for attending, and wonderful job, both of you. Thank you.
I am looking forward to it, my friend. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Clay.
Thank you. And thank you all for showing up, and thank you all for having me here. I'm honored to be a part of your group.
And this will be on our website or on our YouTube channel in about a week.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.